Get started. I want to, first of all, share how excited we are to have Dr. Jamie with us. I'm going to start by reading her curriculum vitae, if you will, but then I'm going to tell you the important stuff after the formal stuff. Dr. Jamie McManus is Chair of Medical Affairs at Shackley. She received her MD from the University of California, Davis, where she graduated with highest honors and was awarded membership in the prestigious Alpha Omega Alpha Medical Honor Society. Dr. McManus practiced family medicine for 15 years with special emphasis in preventive medicine, sports nutrition, and women's health. She truly believes in nutrition as the foundation of health. She has been sharing her knowledge of nutrition, weight management, and fitness on stage, radio, and television to millions of people in 45 countries. She has led seminars for healthcare professionals in many countries, as well as publishing articles on health topics in many dozens of magazines and newspapers. Dr. McManus's first book, Your Personal Guide to Wellness, What Your Doctor Doesn't Have Time to Tell You, was a fascinating read, by the way. Dr. McManus was awarded Woman of Distinction by the East Bay Business Times, was named in the Best Doctors of America, as well as named America's Best Family Doctors by Consumers Research Council of America. She is a member of the American Academy of Family Practice, California Medical Society, and American Medical Women's Association. She was an associate professor of family practice at UC Davis School of Medicine for 8 years. I don't think you're going to meet anybody else with an impressive background as Dr. Jamie has. But on top of that, she is like way cool. She knows more than almost anybody on the planet about the subject we're talking about tonight. But I think more importantly is having known her as long as we have known Dr. Jamie, we realize that she has been one of the moving forces at Shackley that has kept us at the forefront of the science, of the research, of innovation, and
kept the integrity.
Shackley. Absolutely. And it's just been awesome to, number one, know you, Dr. Jamie, but also know the contribution you've made to this amazing company we're all part of. So let me just turn it over to you at this point.
Well, thank you very much. And it's really great to be here. Let me see if I can share my screen and talk about what I think we're all interested in hearing about tonight, and that's Shackley Science. And in particular, let's see if I can do this. There we go. Okay.
Looks like it's working.
Slideshow is working. Play from the start. There we go. Imagine that, Rick, I did it. Everybody give me a big hand, thumbs up. So tonight we're going to be talking about the newly published Landmark 2. And those of you who know about Landmark 1 and Landmark 2 probably feel like we've been waiting for Landmark 2 for 25 years. It's actually really only about 5 years. But science sometimes moves slowly. And as I go through this, I'm going to help you understand that this is a very complex study, which is why it was a little challenging to get it through the peer review process. And there's a bias against nutrition and nutrition that shows great results. So that we all know about that. We read about that in newspapers and various articles, and we meet the skeptics out on the street. So it's incredibly important to understand what we have with the Landmark studies. Landmark 1 and Landmark 2 will now, moving forward, be called the Landmark Health Study, because it is essentially the same population that we studied 10 years apart. So it is a remarkable study. It is unique. No other company has this kind of data on their products and their people. So this is something I really want people to understand and leverage. And I'll talk at the end about what some of the things we're working on to help you and Shackley as a whole leverage what we have. So Landmark 2 is obviously followed upon Landmark 1. Landmark 1 was the very first study that I championed coming into Shackley. Roger and I agreed that we were going to kind of get the portfolio of Shackley Science going again. It had slowed down a bit in the last few years before Roger bought the company. And he was very committed, and really was the reason that I came to Shackley, was to help continue to amass more data, more studies, more clinical research, validating the health effects of nutrition and the health effects of a healthy lifestyle. So Landmark 1, we took a unique group of Shackley distributors who had been using the products for 20 years or more. Now, we chose 20 years because we didn't want anyone to be able to copy us, and not many people, not many companies in 2005 had been around 20 years in our industry. So we pretty much owned that data space there. But we also wanted to validate the safety of taking multiple supplements, that not only are there benefits, but there's essentially no risk, as opposed to, I know we all have had conversations with people that say, oh my gosh, you take all those pills, you must, have a third ear hidden somewhere, or your hair is really green, or something is going to go amiss with you for taking all those natural vitamins and minerals and protein. Oh my goodness, right? So the Landmark 1 data was remarkable. It was published in 2007 in Nutrition Journal, and we've utilized it, and it has really helped set us apart. I think it's very honestly the most significant part of what we call the Shackley difference. It's not only something unique in our industry, but it's unique in really almost any industry, that the company sponsors a study done by academic institutions that validates that their product makes a difference in people's lives. I mean, Amazon doesn't have that, some of the biggest companies in the world don't have that kind of proof, really, essentially. So this is the long-awaited final study. We actually have several publications which you can find in the archive. Sorry, I'm blank on the name. The Clinical Research Archive in Health Resource. But this is the primary one, and it says a beneficial cardiometabolic health profile associated with dietary supplement uses, a cross-sectional study. So we focused on cardiometabolic health because obviously you can't focus on everything. The study would never get done and could never be afforded. So we focused on cardio and metabolic, meaning heart disease and heart disease markers and biomarkers and prevalence of disease, as well as type 2 diabetes. We all know and have heard all of the scientists talk about the type 2 diabetes epidemic. So it's very important that we have data that we can show that we actually are an absolute oddity in the world in a positive kind of way when it comes to both heart disease biomarkers and diabetes. So Landmark 2 was a 10-year follow-up to the same group of people. So the people that we studied in Landmark 1, we came back to them 10 years later. That in of itself is remarkable, that we have a company that people are in the company for 30 years taking our products. Because the people that were 20 plus users, some of them use products as long as it's 30 and 40 years. And when we revisited this group in 2015, this is a group that had used the products for between 30 and 50 years. I mean, it really, truly is remarkable. And we were able to get at least partial data from 82% of the participants. So that's another thing. So you had a group of folks in 2005 with landmark 1 who were average age 63 years old. 10 years later, 82% of them are still engaged in Shackley, coming to a global conference, and their average age 73. So again, it's a remarkable story to tell. So we had 2 primary objectives with landmark 2. We wanted to observe, again, if the Shackley product users, and this time we had some long-term users as well as some short-term users who use the product for 5 years or less, still had better health status as compared to the NHANES cohort. That was what we did in landmark 1. We compared Shackley product users to a government database of people's health information and blood test results that's collected by the CDC every year for the past 40 years. And the Shackley group looked remarkably healthy compared to the NHANES cohorts of people who didn't use any supplements or used just a multivitamin. So we wanted to again compare to other supplement using groups. This time we added 2 or more supplements. So we have a multiple supplement group, non-Shackley group, to compare to our multiple supplement. But of course, I'm going to ask Rick and Aldana if they think they can find anybody in Shackley that only takes 2 supplements.
I don't think there is such a person.
No, I don't think there is such a person. Exactly. But that's one of our comparison groups. It's 2 or more, so they might be taking 20, but it has a minimum of 2. But we would be embarrassed. You can't be a Shackley person and not take at least 25. Right. Okay.
Right.
The second purpose of the study was to validate that the very amazing product results, not product results, but health results that we saw in landmark 1 persisted 10 years later. So we know that around age 50, people's health starts to go south. And we don't see that in Shackley, and we wanted to have a clinical study that would showcase that would validate that would give us data that says, as people get older, they get sicker. It's the whole health span versus lifespan concept. But in Shackley, we don't see that, and we have some data about that. So let's get to the results. So these are comparisons to those who take no supplements at all. And these are biomarkers that you want to be lower, because the higher they are, the higher the risk of either diabetes or heart disease or other health problems. So 36% lower C-reactive protein, 32% lower triglycerides, 24% lower insulin, 13% lower homocysteine, 9% lower BMI, 11% lower blood glucose. So again, all markers where we were looking at inflammation, we were looking at heart health risks and type 2 diabetes risk, as well as markers. And then when it gets to nutrient levels, we look healthier. Shockingly enough, you give good nutrition and health biomarkers improve. So a very nice 141% higher vitamin D, higher B12. And this is quite significant, the B12, because B12 deficiency becomes fairly common. As much as 20% of people that are over the age of 65 have some deficiency or insufficiency of B12 because of lack of stomach acid and or even lack of something called intrinsic factor in the stomach that prevents absorption, that facilitates absorption. So if you don't have it, you don't absorb your vitamin B12. So obviously all the things we wanted to be lower are lower. All the things we wanted to be higher are higher. This is something we didn't ask in landmark 1, and we're very excited we have this data in landmark 2, and that is medication usage. And it's not so remarkable that the young folks, we didn't really even have that many young folks in the landmark study, but they have almost no medication usage. But look at the 60+ year. This is when most 60-year-old, most people, not most 60-year-old, but most people over the age of 60 are on multiple prescription medications, and it goes up almost in a linear fashion with age, so that the average 75-year-old is on oftentimes 15+ prescription medication. Shackley had in our 60+ year population 83% lower medication usage. We had almost no one, we had statistically no one on blood pressure medications. It's a statistical game, I guess. But anyway, I'll leave that for the mathematicians to figure out. This is the one. This is the money slide. This is the money slide. So this is the green line is Shackley. This is where I was just talking about this health trajectory. This is for type 2 diabetes, but this could be about overall health as well, because the curve looks very similar. If you compared all health conditions or all chronic diseases, the curves will look the same. So here we have the blue line, and the blue line shows all of the groups together, the non-Shackley group. And you can see right about age 50, the prevalence of type 2 diabetes goes from about 7% to 17%.
Wow.
So that means 17% of the average 70-year-olds have type 2 diabetes. That's almost 1/5 of the population. And we also know that another 1/3 of people over the age of 60 are pre-diabetic and do not know that because they aren't seeing their doctor regularly, or the doctor hasn't run the right test to validate that. You see the green line, that's obviously Shackley. And I'm not happy that we have a gradual increase, even though it's obviously far better than the other non-Shackley groups. I believe we should have a much flatter line and a much lower percentage. Our landmark 1 study, the prevalence of type 2 diabetes was 2.9%. So the average 50-year-old in Shackley, now not the average 50-year-old in Shackley, but the average 50-year-old in the study had about 3.5%. So again, it's fantastic relative to the rest of the world, but I think we can do better. I think we can help people get to healthier BMIs, have healthier eating habits, have more exercise. I think our Wellness Wednesdays are a great start for that. But this is one that we're going to be focusing a fair bit on. Now, the reason that we can talk about diabetes and other diseases is because we don't tie this to any given product. I like to say that the landmark study validates everything Shackley, which means beyond our products or in addition to our products, it's our lifestyle. It's our healthier eating habits. It's our attempt to get to and stay at a healthy weight. It's trying to lead an active lifestyle. And I firmly believe it's our community of like-minded people who are sharing the good news of health with people. What a blessing that we have. I mean, it's not without stress, and I know there are some days, I'm sure, where you all want to toss in the towel, but don't do it. Don't do it. We have a lot of people we still need to save. So I'm going to show you this, but this is somewhat irrelevant, and you will not see this in materials because we cannot make the Shackley product, the Shackley landmark study results about the products, because then we would be making disease claims, and God help us, we don't want to do that. So, but I think it's kind of interesting. These are the top 10 products, but notice at the top, more than 50% of women were taking 25 products. So these are their top 10, but more than 50% were taking 25 products. The men, I guess you need a little more help. You are taking 29 products on average. Just kidding.
Or you're smarter by taking more.
Anyway, so these are obviously the most important foundational products. So it warms my heart to know that people are, you know, consuming the right products and having obviously fantastic results. So in summary, the Shackley groups, which we combined together, versus the NHANES cohorts, although they were on average 15 years older. So our group was 73 and the others were like 58, average age 58. So they're 15 years, we were 15 years older, therefore we should be less healthy. And instead we had higher blood nutrient levels, healthier biomarkers across the spectrum, dramatically lower medication usage, lower diabetes and heart disease prevalence, and significantly lower risk of cardiovascular disease. This is validated by omega-3 index. I don't present that data here tonight, but we'll talk about it in a future presentation. Omega-3 index is a measure of omega-3 fatty acids in your red blood cells. And it's a new biomarker that if you have 8% or higher omega-3 index, you have a 95% reduced risk of having a heart attack. So where do you think the Shackley group came in?
Well, I know Aldana was 9.8.
Yeah, well, the average was 8.9%. So our Shackley folks are going to live forever. So it's not surprising that optimal blood nutrient levels lead to optimal biomarkers, which lead to better health outcomes. And we have a summary slide, which you will see probably in the product guide if it's not already there. You may have the old one. This has looks like the ones that you've seen the product guide before, but this is brand new. And this has the publications from Dr. Block. So Landmark 1 has a little number 1 postscript, and Landmark 2 has a little number 2. So if the claim in each of these 6 claims has a 1, it comes from Landmark 1 study, and if it has a 2, it comes from Landmark 2, and if it has a 1 and a 2, you see it in both studies. So we can talk about, we have the Landmark Health Study, which is again, this is a study looking at people over 10 years. They have higher levels of key nutrients like vitamin D, folate, and B12. They had significantly healthier biomarkers related to heart, brain, and metabolic health. Healthier C-reactive protein, which we call biological stress, because even though it's a marker of systemic inflammation, inflammation is considered a disease. So our little code word wink, wink is biological stress. Heart health, better cardiovascular health, 33% lower triglycerides and better cholesterol, though that's from the first Landmark study. And then this is a very important one, and this is the lower blood sugar levels across the age spectrum. That was the blue line versus the green line. And Shackley really rocks the lower prevalence. We have a 64% lower prevalence of type 2 diabetes as compared to a non-supplement using NHANES population. That's very significant. Type 2 diabetes is the number 4 cause of death. It's the only chronic disease that we are not getting a handle on at all, and that is because of the obesity epidemic. Heart disease is stabilizing, cancer is stabilizing. Not that they're going away by any means, but they're not continuing to be on the rise because why? Because we've developed better treatments. Even though we have a lot of treatments for type 2 diabetes, because people continue to gain weight and the percentage of people that are obese continues to rise. Used to be literally less than 10 years ago that about 30 to 33% of the population was obese. It's now low 40s. So we're reaching a point where almost half of our population in the United States has a BMI of 30 or higher, which puts them at significant risk of health, all health challenges, not just type 2 diabetes, obviously, heart disease, cancer, neurodegenerative diseases, Alzheimer's, et cetera. These are all associated with higher BMI. We have great solutions. So we just in closing, I'll let you know that we're working with a PR agency and trying to figure out ways to leverage getting this information out in more public arena so that you can point to it in this magazine and that newspaper and be showcasing this is your company and these are people. We studied people taking our products over 20 to 30 years. It's remarkable, and we just have to shout it to the rooftops. So that's it for me, folks.
That's awesome. All right. Well, let's, if you go ahead and stop your.
So I think I have to say that I have to do the stop share, right?
Oh, I guess I can do it too. There we go.
There we go.
Got you back in business. Well, I think one of the things that most people on this call believe beyond a shadow of a doubt is that there really is nothing like us and like our nutrients out there in the marketplace. And to have this kind of reaffirmation, confirmation, proof, I think is a really big deal. And as you say, however we can manage to get it out there so other people have access to that information, can see it, is great. But right now, it looks like we do have a few minutes. If some of you have any questions for Dr. Jamie, remember to unmute yourself and jump back in.
I have a question about the new Omega. You once told me that I needed to take 12, and everything's worked out well so far. The new Omega, does that have less actually Omega guard in it than the old?
Well, you're talking about the vegan, Priscilla?
Yes.
Yeah. The vegan omega-3 is more DHA because it's from algae as opposed to from fish. So it actually has twice as much DHA and about half as much EPA. So here's the thing. Let me tell you. DHA is primarily good for brain and eyes, and EPA is better for heart and joints. But because most of the research has been done on fish oil, which is EPA and DHA, we actually don't really know what exact health benefits have come from this ratio or that ratio of EPA and DHA. So most of the experts on omega-3s feel like, unless you're really going for a specific benefit, having a mixture of DHA-rich omega-3s and EPA-rich omega-3s is fine.
Should I take half the new and half the old? Or?
Yeah, half the new and half the old.
Okay.
Or alternate.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We just added another one.
Anybody else?
Rick, I'm just going to ask if you can hear me. My mic is not
Yep.
working on the laptop upstairs.
We got you, guy.
Okay, thank you. Kathy's upstairs. If she's got a question, she'll run down. Good to see you, Dr. Jamie. I mean, it's been a while, but what a great step forward with this Landmark 2. We were in both of them. And
Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing your blood.
yep, well, that 83 or whatever, we're kind of keep on going the same way as we have been. We're so proud of Shackley and Roger and what the staff is doing.
Absolutely.
Dr.
Thank you.
McManus,
Yes.
Jack and I were both in both studies also, but I would like to ask a question. What is the test that you take for the omega-3 levels in your body, and what's the normal range?
It's an omega-3 index. It's a measure of percentage of omega-3s in your red blood cell membranes. It's not a standard test, but your doctor can request it. It's a specially ordered test. The range is from 0 to 12 or 13%. Most people in America are at 4% or under. And we feel that is associated with a higher risk of heart disease. If you go to Japan and many of the Asian countries, the percentage, or the average omega-3 index is around 8%. So this is a new emerging marker, and we're still figuring out exactly what the best levels are. Higher is definitely better. Higher than 8% looks to be protective of the development of heart disease. So the average omega-3 index in the Landmark 2 study was about 8.5%, with the highest one being 14%. I won't tell you who that is. She can share it if she wants. But Aldana, you were 9%?
I think I was 11%.
I think you're
Rick
right.
was
Now that you say that.
Rick was 9 point something percent. I
Ah.
was 11, and Dean Smith beat me.
Well, that's not surprising. Dean Smith beats everybody.
That's right.
You would not believe how many he takes. And he was in the test too, so,
Yeah. Rick and I were in both tests too.
yeah.
Well, and Dr. Jamie, I think a comment worth making is here's Dean at 94 on 0 medications.
Right.
I know.
So, he's one of those people that helps skew the curve for the Shackley people for sure. I'm 75. I'm on 0 medications. So
Yeah.
unlike most Americans, Shackley people are no
Healthier.
doubt healthier.
Healthier.
My mother is 91 and she takes a little low dose thyroid, and that's it. And every time she goes to her doctor, the nurse says, "Are you sure you're not on any medication?"
Yeah.
And she says, "Stop asking me that."
All right. Anybody else?
I just want to say when you're on Medicare, every time you go, they ask you, how often do you fall? So I say, now, do you mean off my surfboard or off my paddleboard?
That's great.
I love it. We're in an
All righty,
unusual
gang.
group.
Well, Dr. Jamie, thank you so much for taking time to share that with us. It's exciting stuff. It just, reaffirms what we already knew, but I think it gives everybody more confidence to go out and share it. And your willingness to be so accessible to the field, I think speaks well of who you are and what you bring to the party. So thank you again for spending your time with us
And
tonight.
also thank you for maintaining the integrity of our science and research and our products.
Well, you're very welcome. And just to remind everybody, in case I think everybody in this group probably knows because you are affiliated with Rick and Aldana, but the health resource site now has 142 studies on it in the complete research archive. You can print out any study. So, and no company has first of all, there's no requirements to do any research. Most companies have zero. And we have been amassing very good quality scientific research on our products since the 1980s, which is really when the whole science of nutrition and the health effects, because up until then, we were studying deficiency states and how to not have scurvy and things like that. And it really wasn't until the 70s and 80s that we really started to say, wow, people that eat healthier, people that are more slender, people that eat a lot of vegetables, people that eat less processed and fast foods seem to be a lot healthier. There must be something to this. So we have amassed a great deal of research, and I think we should be very proud of it. I'm in the process of working with marketing to create a book that has all of our studies. Remember how we used to have them in the back of the product guide, but they were just listed and you had to have a magnifying glass to read them?
Yep.
Well, we're going to make a book that tells, kind of just like if you go on a health resource now, it tells why the study was done and what the study showed, and then a link to the actual study manuscript.
Oh, that's great.
Great.
Wonderful.
And I assume, as in the past, when you go to Health Resource and you pull up the bibliography, that the most recent ones are at the top. So I'm assuming this Landmark 2 is right at the top, number 142, when you open it up.
It's actually not there yet. Please don't shoot me.
Oh, Dr. Jamie, come on.
I know. There's 141. We're working on it. I promise to get it up before the end of April.
All right. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you again.
Thank
And
you.
thank
Thanks,
you all for
Dr.
joining us
Jamie.
tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Jamie.
You.
Nice to see everybody. Hey, Laura.
Nice to see
Great
you.
call.
Go out and share it with the world.
Love you all.
Thank
you,
Dr. Jamie.
Wonderful to see everybody. Love you guys. Miss you.
Love you
We're
too.
gonna see each other again at some point in time,
Yes,
right?
they are.
Gotta
Absolutely.
watch our
Yeah.
mask on, please.
You got it.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
I'm worried about
Night.
what people look like.